It's bigger. It's louder. It's better than ever. This still isn't your typical motorsports podcast. This is the 10th anniversary of Crush This, a monster truck podcast brought to you by J Concepts. For 10 years, your hosts, the monster truck Canucker Brad Shaw and Dan Chichagash, have brought you into the minds and personalities of the monster truck industry. Strap in and hold on tight. This is Crush This!
And welcome to a brand new episode of Crush This, a Monster Truck podcast. My name is Bradshaw, also known as the Monster Truck Canucker. My co-host Dan Chichagash is in the background waiting to come on the episode. Guys, tonight is going to be an awesome episode. We have a father and son team. Alan Pezo and his son Brandon are going to be on the show tonight. It's going to be awesome to have them on. I got to meet them at that event right there, the Four-Wheel Jamboree in 2022. I have my Predator Monster Machines diecast that I got at that event. I'm excited for this episode. I've been a fan of Alan for a long time, from the TNN days. I'm excited to have him on and talk to him about the new truck they built and just everything they have going on, guys. A couple of housekeeping things before we get on to our interview, guys. Check out, RC stuff. Dan is sponsored by J Concepts, and so is the podcast. We've been working with J Concepts for a long time now. Fred Ruona and Fred Reap, Jason Ruona. I had a brain fart there. We've been working with them for a long time. Use our code at jconcepts.net at 50% off all items. Our code Crush This. Cheech has some of his RCs behind him with J Concepts parts, bodies, tires, wheels, you name it. Dan's RCs are all J Concepts out. Thank you to them for so much that they do for us. Check out our friends over at Monsters Monthly. If you're unable to get the podcast through streaming platforms, YouTube or anything, check out Monsters Monthly. They host our podcast up on their website as well. It's awesome to have them with us. They do so much cool stuff for the monster truck industry. A lot of content, a lot of recaps on shows. Go check them out and everything they do. Our buddy Bryce Kenny has his book, Geared for Life. Me and Cheech have copies of it on our phones. There is an audio version as well. So if you're traveling down the road, need something to listen to, need to have a pick-me-up, need some advice, check out that book. Bryce is a great guy. We had him on last year. Hoping to have him on again and talk about, his transition from Mohawk Warrior to Monster Mutt to now Rec Deck that got debuted at World Finals. And guys, we have some stuff up on our spread shop. Go check that out. Some cool shirts, some cool hats, some cool gear. Check that out. And guys, we're going to play one ad here for our buddies over at Monster Truck Attitude. And then we are going to get on the episode with Brandon and Alan Pezo. So guys, stay tuned.
Are you ready to get in on the action here on the Monster Truck Attitude YouTube channel? Look no further. Head over to Facebook where you can sign up for all the great events we host right here on the MTA YouTube channel. Be sure to sign up for the events and register your name and get locked in with a monster truck of your own and get ready for the great thrills and spills right here on the MTA YouTube channel. Again, find us on Facebook, register for these events, and you soon will be competing in all the great events. We hope to see you there. And get ready for the wild and crazy action. Be sure to subscribe and turn on all notifications so you don't miss a beat right here on the Monster Truck Attitude YouTube channel.
Hey guys, welcome back, and thank you for being on. Just wanted a little check note that tomorrow, if you guys are around the Illinois area, we're having a show at the Champaign County Fair. We are having 5 trucks there, 3 of our Hall Brothers trucks, and then 2 of the Chulutsias. I can't pronounce their last name, but whatever. The Just Get Her Done, and then the newly Living on the Edge truck. So go out and take a look at that. Pit party 5:30 to 6:30, and then a 7 o'clock start. But outside of that, man, Alan and Brandon Pezo, what's going on, guys? Saw you about a couple weeks ago. It was awesome seeing you. And I tell you what, Alan, for me, I was giddy, maybe for you too, Brandon, Now I'm going to start off the first question here. I was so giddy with my fist up in the air watching you and Mark in the finals on Friday night at Bloomsburg. Something I saw when I was a little kid on TNN. You know, when he had Executioner and you had the the black the Monster Wars type theme Predator truck, and I mean, uh, for me that was awesome seeing uh a guy that has done the Pendas Point series there. For you doing that and having that finals and coming back to Bloomsburg, how cool was that?
I tell you, it was pretty awesome. It been 2022, I think, was the last time that we were at Bloomsburg, and we actually had a good weekend then. I cleaned house and won everything that weekend, and then it was great to be back to the Bloomsburg Fairgrounds again. What an awesome event. Guys are doing a fantastic job bringing that back, and hopefully, can get it back on the right side and fill the place back up like it used to be, back in the day. And like you were saying, Mark and I was in the final round on Friday night, and couldn't get any better than that. Um, I just couldn't get around the last corner there. The truck kept sliding sideways. And, still had to be a pretty close race as it was. And, Mark come out the winner, unfortunately, but uh, nonetheless, it was awesome.
Well, it's really cool to see you guys back at the Jamborees, especially you, Alan. Cheech mentioned, in the TNN era, that's the era that I grew up in as well. And watching you race, in the Penda Point series, how special was that time, in the industry when it was all about horsepower, all out drag racing, ETs? How was that time period for you? And what do you remember about that era?
I'll tell you, that was my most favorite time, and we're at a point now in the industry that we need something like that to come back again. Um, Things need to change a little bit. They've kind of gotten out of hand with where everything is at right now, and we need to go back to a real deal again. Um, it's amazing how fast these trucks actually are. People don't realize, these trucks will go, 0 to 100. There's been a couple of trucks over 100 miles an hour, and it's just amazing how fast they actually are.
And for you, Brandon, being the son of Alan, seeing the jamborees and the history and knowing about at one time on this hollow ground, your dad was racing Fred Schaefer in barefoot, you know going under 5 seconds with a 10,000, maybe 9 to 10,000 pound monster truck. For you, uh, knowing about the history of that area, how was that for you?
It's definitely different growing up in it. Like I hear stories all the time about how it was back then, and then seeing it now. What he said was right. Is we really need to go back to a real race series like it was back then. That's something I would definitely be interested in, and I think everybody would have a lot of fun nowadays if we went back to something like that.
And Alan, you touched on something there that the trucks are faster than ever, and that's true. It's incredible to see the technology, how far it's progressed, in this industry since the 90s. When we had, especially Fred Schaefer with the belly chassis, which I think revolutionized the sport. You look at what even I think it was Kirk Dabney when he came out with his wild chassis ideas. Talk about all the innovation people tried to do back in that time period,
Including himself.
Yeah,
'Cause he did the
including
front
yourself.
flowing trucks and stuff like that. He did a lot of stuff also.
Oh yeah, talk about in a way that
You got to think about it. You got to kind of look at it on a different level. Back then, it wasn't easy. Everybody had to figure out for themselves what it took to go fast, what it took to make a truck. Nowadays, you can call up 4 or 5 of us and actually get a turnkey truck built where, all that hard work is done. They don't, the people now that come into it don't have to source, different parts. Well, this part might work, it might not. You got to try this and try that in order to make things, better. And then, the only way you're going to make things better is you go out and you break something. Well, that didn't work. So what's the next best thing? And that's just, technology evolving. You think about it, when we started, it was an overgrown pickup truck, big giant leaf spring. If you had 2 inches of suspension travel when we first came out, that would be, probably a lot. And nowadays we're talking over 30 inches of suspension travel. And, and Cheech, you know as well as I do, being a driver, 9 times out of 10, you don't even feel it touch the ground because the suspension just sucks it up so well.
Yeah, that's true. And with that technology and stuff like that, I even driving the Raminator ride truck, which is a leaf spring, four shock absorbers on each corner. I felt even driving it not aggressively, just driving it on a dirt track or a grass field. I feel every single bit of movement, and it just shakes you around, just even for being a leafer. And
Well,
then
I was 7 foot tall when I started in this business,
yeah,
and I've shrunk over the years from all the poundings.
yeah, the technology. I'm gonna try to go back there, Alan, when you saw back the early '90s when when that the sport was changing, and you had your first coil over truck. You know when you got behind the wheel of it compared to the leaf spring truck that you had beforehand. I'm assuming you were surprised on how that truck handled compared to the other truck, or was it hard to get used to, or was it really easy to
Well,
get to it?
you thinking back on that technology, my last leaf spring truck actually, for a leaf spring truck, worked pretty darn well. It had 12 inches of travel, which, for a leaf spring truck, that's pretty phenomenal. And then, transferred over into the new race truck, the first front engine, 4-link truck, tube chassis, had 18-inch custard coilovers on it. And man, oh man, I could not believe the difference. The first pass I made, I had to go back and look. Did I even go over the cars? Because it landed so well compared to the leaf springs. And and then it makes you do stupid things because man, that didn't hurt. Now I can go bigger, and man, that didn't hurt. Now I can go even bigger. So it's amazing, what technology does over the years.
Now, one question I have, you campaigned the name Predator with the leaf spraying truck for many years and then, went to the, coilover truck. When did the talks start to come out with the body everybody knows? How did that come about? That's something that I've always wondered with, the cat body. How did that all happen?
I did that in 1990 is actually when I did that. And I was just, at that point, everybody was just a standard Chevrolet or Ford or Dodge or whatever. And at that point, I was trying to get more bookings. And in order to set yourself apart from somebody else, you got to do something different. And I kind of thought, well, if I take the name and put something to the name, it would be a lasting impression on somebody. So now when they think of somebody to call, well, I remember that truck there with that, different looking body, versus, okay, it was just a standard pickup truck. So that's kind of how it came about.
And then what Monster Wars the kind of really like that idea of doing all that stuff also. I think I did an interview with you at the Hall of Fame. We talked about that, but still that the so that was the talk because of that. I know we had Mark Bendler. He talked about Kodiak and how he had the the Kodiak was supposed to have a theme person, and we talked to Rob Fuchs of First Blood and how that came about. So I'm assuming that you were probably one of the first teams to get talked about this idea of the television series back in '93 of having a character with the truck and all that jazz. Because I know David Morris was not a fan of that with the Equalizer, and I personally talked to Fred, and Fred just told him straight no about doing a character for his barefoot truck. But for you, what how did that come about? Knowing with the 3D and the cat and the human and stuff like that.
Well, that's a concept that they came up with at that time. I'm not really a fan. I never was a fan of it, when it first came out. But that was something that they thought, the general public would kind of like. It's kind of do a drama type thing, behind the scenes, and versus all the racing and all that. I never cared for it from the start.
Now, Brendan, have you gone back and watched some of those old Monster Wars episodes? And what do you think of that time period of the '90s in monster truck racing?
I don't know if we did the Monster Wars exactly, but we do have old VHS tapes that has all the Penda series and all the Pro MT stuff on tape. And when I was younger, we used to watch that every single night. Just all the old monster truck stuff, all the old stuff my dad has done, and it's definitely way cooler than the stuff nowadays.
So we're going back to you, Brandon, and what we're gonna go and pick your brain a little bit here. And when did you have talks with your dad about maybe trying to get behind the wheel of a monster truck?
Oh man, that's a while ago.
That probably goes back to when he was about 10 years old, when I built the mini monsters, and he decided he'd like to do that. And, he ran the mini monster for a long time. And then probably about 3 years ago, he decided he'd like to drive the ride truck. And then, it all just transitioned, on up from there.
Mhm.
Because I remember when I met you guys in 2022. You weren't driving at that time yet, Brandon. I don't believe. What's it like? Going back and watching your dad's Hall of Fame career and seeing the moments that he has created, and now with you behind the seat, the moments that you want to create.
It's definitely an honor that most people don't get to experience. So I'm pretty grateful for that, and definitely something I can carry on for sure.
And we have a couple. We're getting actually decent fan questions here, so I gotta catch up here before we do anything else. I still have a kind of list of questions, but I think this is for a question for both from Dustin Parks. Hi, Dustin. He said, "Hey guys, awesome seeing you. Question for both Brandon and Alan. The mini monsters you guys built have really become popular. How did that get started in the build the smaller scale machines?"
Well, it's actually started way back early 2000s. I think I built the first one, and I've done 7 of them for different customers, plus 2 of them we have for ourselves yet. In early 2000s, um, it was time to do something different for fill-in, type stuff at our events. Because basically, to me, the quad wars just plain wore out. Freestyle motocross is still cool, but it's very expensive. So I thought, why not build a smaller version of these trucks, bring them into our shows, and it's a perfect fill-in act. What better thing than a mini monster at a monster truck show?
And now look how many monsters have spreaded so many careers. You look at Colton Kaiser, who had one of your guys' trucks for a long time, and now he's killing it in the full size. It must be cool for you guys to see a guy like Colton Kaiser go from one of your mini trucks to being in the full size and competing with you guys.
Absolutely. And also, besides him, you've got Shane out on the West Coast that was in one of our trucks, also in mini truck. And now he has stepped up into the big truck, which is the one big truck that I had sold them, and they've been campaigning that for the last few years. So it's pretty good to see, the transition, the younger generation, taking interest in it. And, you can kind of view it as, okay, that's a little bit of a stepping stone to go from the minis, and still do shows, be part of it. And then as time goes by, you can step up and go into a big truck.
Hmm.
Now, I mean, even though I have heard stories that Alan, you had some much fun times with the mini monster trucks. You went from the full size to the minis, and I heard that you have a blast behind the wheel of those things, also.
Oh man, I tell you, uh, They're an absolute blast. Um, Brandon and I went to Memphis there probably 2 or 3 years ago at a motocross track. They wanted us to come down and do a little bit of a freestyle. So we got to take the minis out on the motocross track. I bet I did a 10 or 15-minute freestyle out there because I couldn't quit. It was having so much fun out there launching the tabletops and everything else. I mean, just absolutely a blast.
And Brandon, what about you? You know, driving the minis and now stepping into the seat of the full size truck. Do you think the mini helped you gain spatial awareness and knowing when to use the rear steer? Did that help you at all in the transition?
The Mini, not so much on the rear steer part. That was more of a ride truck, but all of our trucks are pretty much set up the same. So it definitely helped me understand where everything was. If you sit in every single one of our trucks, every control is at the same location. So, I mean, you can train in any truck basically. So, yes,
Yeah,
it did help me a lot.
that is pretty cool. Because hearing that from you, because for me, learning from the full size racetrack, the ride truck did help out. The rear steer is near the left for us. I think, yeah, for us the left side toggle switch is how we go, you know the rear steer, and the ride truck's the same way with our race truck and stuff like that. Um, Now we have another question from Sean Green, and I think that would be, I want to mix this up a little bit. He said, "What went behind your designing your new chassis for Pouncer?" Um, no, I'm wondering for Brandon, did you kind of put your little bit 2 cents in there too? And Alan, yeah, what was the method behind the new race truck that you guys built?
Well, the thing I see right now, our industry is going backwards. We learned 25 years ago that a 15,000 pound truck just didn't hold up. We went from a 15,000 pound truck to a 10,000 pound race truck. What happened? Parts started living. Well, everybody's trucks now are going the wrong direction. They're getting heavier and heavier and heavier, and they're breaking all the time. And I never was one to follow what anybody else did anyway. Um, I try to be, totally different and create something that nobody else has done. So that's why the new truck, if it weighs 8,000 pounds, I would be surprised. Um, when you get rid of that much weight, everything becomes stronger. They want these things to fly higher and farther and all that. Well, the only way to do that is get rid of the weight, and it takes less energy as it lands and absorbs that energy, so parts start living better.
It's
Oh,
such a.
sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Cheech.
I was wondering if Brandon, did you have any your 2 cents worth of, helping out with the design of this of the new truck?
Not exactly, but I was there every day helping cut tube, weld, and just put the whole thing together. So I pretty much got to see everything go together. I did fix a couple mistakes that he started to make, and then yeah, I could say a little bit, but not as much. He had it all up in his head before we started laying tubes. So
And how long was the design process? Because you look at all the chassis that are around in the industry, the CRDs to the Eddie Machka chassis and such. How long did it take you guys from designing it to the finished product at the debut?
I don't know what happened to my dad, but from us laying the first tube to rolling out of the shop was 31 days. We started it mid-December, and we had to be out January 8th. So there was really no time for slacking or anything, and we were moving at a pretty fast pace putting it together.
I noticed like the
Oh, nice.
what happened.
His phone overheated and cut him off.
Oh no. Oh well. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, we lost Alan, but I think his phone overheated. I think they're fixing the problem right now.
There you go.
There we
We'll have to do
go.
it this way because my phone overheated and cut off.
Oh, the audio sound better. I'm just kidding.
All right.
Richie Kaiser's in the chat here. Says we were having ice cream in honor of Alan and Little Alan.
Sounds good to me.
Hey, I just had some about 5 minutes ago.
Oh, look
They
at
love
that.
their
Me
ice
too.
cream. Trust me, those guys love their ice cream.
I didn't miss many ice cream stops when we were in Bloomsburg.
Yeah, I like my ice cream too. We had some beforehand also. You know, the Bluebell. I love that Bluebell ice cream. And then Bucket, Kyle Seasock, the son of John Seasock, said it was a cool experience looking through my photos from '91 with Alan in Bloomsburg.
Yeah, that album was pretty cool. I got to see some trucks that I had built for other people in there, and gave him a little bit of a lesson on different things also that he didn't know, and so that was pretty cool. Brought back a lot of good memories.
So one question I have about the new truck is, compared to a normal truck, let's say, just like a normal Cohen or Eddie chassis, what did you guys do different on this chassis to kind of try something different?
Well, just any excess tubes that people put in there just for aesthetics, didn't need to be there. And I don't agree with a lot of way these guys are building these chassis. Putting this tube in here for aesthetics or this tube over there for that. That's not the way you do things. A chassis needs to be all in triangulated form, where one tube pushes against another to another, and it transfers the load from front to back. And all these chassis that are being built today are not that way. And I've seen a lot of issues with them that are going on.
We have to do this for Jimmy Harrington, the guy who owned and drove the Boss Gator. He said, "Time to update your phone, Skippy."
Do it for Jimmy.
Yeah, I'm still stuck in the Stone Ages, and I'm going to stay there.
One thing about a tech question here is, so we had one guy from Jesse Metz. He wanted to know what was the reason for lowering your front end for racing.
Well, it makes it easier to see, and actually, the Predator body and why it looks like it does. The body is actually mounted at 8 inches. It's actually an 8 inch rake on it, where the front of the body is mounted 8 inches lower than the back of the body, so that way it gives you a lot better visibility.
I love the way that your truck sits. It has just this nasty rake. And I remember when I went to Joey Sylvester's show in 2022, after I went to the Jamboree, there was a term that got coined that weekend called Pezoing. And what that meant, what that means is going very like low and fast over the jumps, kind of like you were the year previous in your truck.
Right.
And it was just kind of like a funny thing that we started calling, oh, he's Pezoing. Because
Right.
you had that, you always kept it very low and fast over those car sets, which I think was awesome to see.
Right. Anytime you're in the air, it's not moving forward. You're losing time, so your fastest way is be on the ground.
Now, kind of a cool question we got from Andy Ulam, and I'll show the photo here. And he wanted to know about the design, this backstory of the design of your Predator hauler. A lot of toys were kind of made behind, with that look. It's probably one of the most iconic monster truck haulers out there when you see it on the road. It's bright, stuff like that. What was the story behind the design of that rig?
Well, 1999, is when I actually had the trailer built. Featherlight built the trailer for me, and I designed it all, and then they built it for me. They got it delivered December of '99. I started out 2000 with that trailer, and again, you got to try and set yourself apart from somebody else, and everybody else got the standard white trailers or this or that. And I always like the bright colors, and I want to do something totally different than anybody else. So again, it makes it a thing that you remember versus, okay, well, that guy just had a white trailer or this guy had a blue trailer. You know, I still try to make things where it's a memory.
Now, one question I have is with the new truck, how has it been working? You guys have been out with it now since January. How has it been running? Have you guys done any changes or tweaks on it so far, or have you guys kind of just left it alone and it's been working fine?
Now, each week we keep getting better with it. It did not come out of the box, perfect like I thought it was going to. Shocks were way off, so we've been playing with shocks and tweaking it each week. And I'll tell you, it's getting faster and faster each week. We just made some more changes tomorrow. Actually, before this weekend, we're going to make some more changes. Each week, it's showing more and more promise.
We have a lot of people talking about the toy hauler and stuff like that. That's pretty cool. Talking about the hauler and stuff, and with you driving the new truck, that means more seat time for you, Brandon, in the Predator truck. And while I watched video, I think you guys were in Kentucky for Full Throttle, and that was a pretty good lineup. Seeing Gunslinger back behind the back there, also. For you, Brandon, getting um, you know used to having seat time with that truck. Also, the cool thing is having those big shocks, the single shocks that you guys run too. Um, having that truck running. How did that feel, that show for you?
That show was actually a pretty good show for me. I took the wheelie and racing win home and came up a little short in freestyle, but it's just a different feeling going from the double shocks to the single. It just, you don't realize how hard you're hitting stuff because it just soaks it up. And you actually have to drive the truck way harder because it just reacts so well.
And Brandon, what's it like having, a lot of, people giving you advice that are, icons in the industry, like your dad and so many others? What is some of the best advice people have given you driving wise so far?
Just, it's really all the throttle control. And my dad has taught me a lot about that on when to hit the throttle, when to let out. I mean, that's just the main part of it. And I'm slowly getting better every week. So that's definitely the main advice I've taken to heart.
And now with the new truck there, Alan, is it a much more shorter wheelbase compared to your Patrick? I know the truck that you build, that Brandon driving and you drove at Bloomsburg, is a long truck piece, because in that time frame, trying to knock off Tom, and how he was a Monster Jam, that truck of yours could have done it, did do that. But and also the Patrick, what the size of the wheelbase of the new truck, looks like it's a little different. But
Yeah,
was it hard
it's
to
a little bit
adjust?
it's a little bit shorter than the Predator chassis, which when I built that truck, I more built it for racing versus everything else. And the new one's kind of a generic wheelbase, I guess you'd call it, because we do a lot of arenas and smaller uh, fairgrounds events with it. And, the shorter wheelbase makes it easier for getting around some, unless you really, like Brandon said, the Predator truck, you have to drive that truck to make it do something. So, because it works so well. And, I wanted to make this one a little bit easier so you didn't have to drive as hard to make it do something.
Now, one thing I wanted to ask about is your loyalty to the Hemi. The Hall brothers have run Hemis for forever. You've also been a big proponent of the Hemis, especially in Predator. What's your secret behind the success with the Hemi? They're used in drag racing all the time. What do you love so much about that Hemi motor?
Well, they stay together very well compared to everything else. Bearing life is probably 2 to 1 over Chevrolet or Ford, because the bottom end of the Hemi, the main caps are encapsulated in the block and they're side bolted through the block, so everything is so stiff in the bottom end. Bearing life just goes way up. And they make so much more power, than a wedge motor ever thought about doing. And I've been running them since the early '90s, and I've had extremely, extremely good luck with them.
It's when it was cool at Bloomsburg when half the field, more than half the field, were running Hemis.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty exciting.
yeah, that doesn't happen very often. That was pretty cool to see. Basically 5 out of 7 trucks had Hemis in them.
Yeah, one, what I think, out of everything, I think one just a big block Chevy, and then I think what the War Wizard was a Big Chief Buick or Big Chief Pontiac, I think.
Pontiac or Oldsmobile, yeah.
Yeah. So that right there, the Pontiac Big Chief is another popular drag racing motor.
Yeah,
For a
it's
lot.
the next best thing to a Hemi,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Jimmy Cretin used to run those back in the day as well.
right?
hmm I know Tim ran those and sold them to Guy Wood. I think Guy Wood had the those Big Chief trucks
Right.
in his bulldozer truck for a while. But you also mix and match a little bit. I think some was it Lenny's Prowler, a big block Chevy too. I know
We
you
still
mixed a
have
little bit.
one. We still have
Okay.
one in the rotation, but we've also got two Aries Hemis also, besides all the Brad Anderson Hemis and the Hemis. So we still got one lonely little Chevrolet hanging out.
You just mentioned a name there. That's an old drag racer, Ken Venny's Vega back in the day. You know, it's still a huge proponent in truck pulling. But one thing I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you, Alan, you know, we just had a couple weeks ago the 24th edition of the Monster Jam World Finals. You were at the very first one. I wanted to ask you what do you remember about the hype around the first World Finals and what made that so special to be at, you know, in that era?
Well, it's pretty awesome to be invited to be, in such a high profile event for one. And, at that time, nobody even knew what to expect. That was the very first one. And to call it a world finals was pretty cool. But technically, it's really not the world finals because there's still trucks from other countries and whatever that never did, you know, get involved to come over. So it's really not a real World Finals, but it is a Monster Jam World Finals. But it's still absolutely cool because of the height of it.
We want to give one shout out. He wanted to give you a shout out, Alan. Was Aaron Cromer, who also is a Hemi driver. A lot of people don't know Rick Rabb's American Guardian and Anger Management ran Keith Black Hemis, but I think those were cast iron. I think blocks. I believe the
No,
last time I saw them, right?
no, Keith Black always did aluminum blocks. I still
Oh, my
have two or
bad.
three of
Yeah,
them, but they're a cast block instead of a billet block.
that's sorry, cast. Sorry about
Yep,
that. Yeah, cast block. But he
but
wanted to say he
they're still aluminum.
He said he learned a lot from Alan staying at his place in 2006. He said that you were great and took time to show him how to fix a third member.
Yeah, yeah, we had a pretty good week that week when they stayed with us. I think if I remember right, I built them a jack, electric jack to put tires on as well.
Now, I wanted to bring up a video here of the time that I got to see you run in Indy. It was the Sunday, and you got probably the biggest air that I've seen you get in quite a while at that event. And it went so viral. It's when the tire came off. It went so viral that even Ryan Anderson posted about that this weekend.
Okay.
What do you remember about the 2022 Jamboree? Because there was no racing. It was just kind of like a best trick freestyle kind
Yep.
of deal. What do you remember about that weekend?
Well, I screwed up, and I'll take credit for it. We've been doing Friday shows, Saturday shows, and all that. Well, I never walked the track on Sunday morning,
Right
and
there.
I didn't realize that they had cut the bottom of that ramp out on Sunday morning. So I hit it with a head of steam, just like I did Friday night and Saturday night, and realized, that was way more than what I anticipated it should have been.
Like, I remember I'm standing there and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah,
Because you had some issues. You were welding the truck back up. I think it was either Friday night or Saturday night, and as soon as we saw the tire pop off right there, Richie, everybody just started running.
right.
But
Yeah,
you had it welded back up, ready to put back in the trailer. Which,
yep.
like,
Well, there's not much that we can't accomplish to get back out there and going. Basically, the hardest thing would be is change a motor in between rounds, which we can't do. But if there's something else that's broke, we will do what we can to get it back out.
Richie says,
Richie said you had a skillet moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you channeled your inner Colton.
There you go.
He's trying so hard to pick up your old tank from Andy Hoffman. That's another story too. You went outside the box. How did you find that tank or that track vehicle? Because it wasn't the M4; it was a completely different vehicle, and it wasn't even like the Bigfoots and the Full Metal Jacket. It was a different piece.
Well, absolutely. As a current, like a Vietnam era personnel carrier, and it was all aluminum compared to everything else. It was all steel, so it doesn't weigh hardly anything. With the motor and everything in it, as we raced, it was only 9,500 pounds compared to everything else was 27,000. When I built my first M4, that thing weighed 25,000 pounds, but no suspension, and it just flat would kill you. And the new one was all torsion bar suspended, and it rode really, really well.
Now, there was a comment that just kind of shocked me. Joe Moss, he says, loved Alan's Little Predator when he brought it to the Edmonton, Alberta shows. You came up to like around my neck of the woods. I'm only about 4-hour drive from Edmonton.
I used I used to do a bunch of stuff all up in the western part of the Canadian territories. A good friend of mine, Rob Wallace Chuck, with Performance Promotions up there. Um, Early on, we probably spent 2 or 3 months at a time up there. I never came home. I was gone for 2 or 3 months at a time, and absolutely loved being up there. And I wish Rob would do a bunch more shows, up that way. I would definitely go back up.
He still does some shows. It's known as the Outlaws of Motorsports Group, and
Okay.
they do a lot of stuff with the Bill Payne team, the Roughneck Crew Behavior team. But it's cool knowing that you would do shows up. I live in Grand Prairie, Alberta. I don't know if you ever been up that.
Yep. Been there many times.
Oh, that's cool. That is cool. Like I'm kind of geeking out over that.
Yep.
But
I
yeah,
absolutely love it. I love Western Canada. It's absolutely awesome up there. You know, uh, all the way across Alberta, Saskatchewan, into British Columbia. We used to go up by Banff National Forest and up there, and it was absolutely some most beautiful country I've ever seen.
Now, wanted to ask. I just brain farted my question. Dang it. Because you guys were talking about Canada and stuff like that. Uh, it was actually for both of you guys. Um, I just saw the fill in for the busted loose question. Um, I'm sorry, Brad. Do you have another question? Because I
yeah,
had the question in my head and it just went
I got
and it
another
just went
question.
out.
I guess my
Man.
brain fart from the beginning of the episode transferred over to you somehow. So,
Um,
um,
uh,
this is a question for both of you. Let's go start with you, Brandon. What is your favorite scheme that Predator, has had, or Pouncer,
got it.
or like, what's your favorite scheme that truck has ran?
My favorite one would probably be the Predator. Say 5 or 6 years ago when it was the blue flame down the side and it had all the airbrush flame on the hood. That's actually what this one was supposed to be, but the wrap guy screwed up the design, and that's what it came out as. But my favorite one would probably be with the blue flames down the side and airbrush all over.
And then yourself, Alan.
Same one. We're actually going to try to do that again. And what we did with that, in the lettering, the blue outline on the lettering was actually reflective vinyl. So if you see in certain pictures in the lighting, the lettering actually is glowing, and along with the blue flames and the purple flames, they actually glow just like they were actually lit up from behind.
That's cool.
So, okay, my check. This was my question here because I was thinking back. You started off with the Lone Eagle. You were 15 years old, Alan, when you first started. Uh, was there any point in time during the transition from you could have were you thinking at one time from the transition from Lone Eagle to Predator that you would did you think of changing it to a Dodge body? Because I know you're a huge Mopar guy, you're a huge Dodge Mopar fan. Was there ever? I know the current Cat Predator Cat is a ram body truck with a front clip of the Panther. But during the time period of, were you ever considering, because there wasn't a lot of Ram trucks. I mean, outside the 90s, you had, Barefoot that jumped over because of, you know, money, and the later on the halls. But back then you only didn't really have Mopar Magic and maybe some local trucks, so there wasn't any big push for the Dodge brand or the Ram truck brand. Were you ever considered during your time period to have one of your trucks being a Mopar monster truck?
Absolutely. My first pickup truck that I ever, bought and drove, when I turned 16, that I drove on the street was a short bed Dodge 4x4. And I fixed it all up. I took it down to the bare frame, redid it all, and painted it up really cool and all that, and big tires. Um, but everybody in them days, was Chevrolet or Ford. And I thought, well, to kind of stay in the popularity, I kind of need to do a Chevrolet. But then as time went by, uh, I really wanted to do the Dodge deal. And you're right, I'm a huge Mopar fan. We've got all kinds of Mopars here, in our collection. And, it's just, I wanted to do it long before I did, change over.
Question I have for you, Brandon. One thing that I see on your social media is you're really into building, RC trucks and the chassis. How did you get started doing that with building chassis and stuff like that?
I just really wanted to do stuff outside of like a show weekend. Like when you get home, you really work on the trucks and all. I just wanted to have some kind of racing outside of every weekend. So I decided to buy one of them, and it turned out it wasn't good enough because I tried to do stupid stuff with it. So I started building my own chassis and axles and shocks, and so that's really how all that came about.
And I see you're currently processing building one and stuff. You're gonna are you making your own identity, or are you trying to make a 10 scale Predator truck?
I haven't really thought about a body yet because I've been having other issues. But when I figure them out, I'll definitely think more on what I want it to be.
And now, one thing I wanted to bring up, I noticed the shirt you're wearing, Brandon, Tropical Thunder, Wayne Smozanik. Rest in peace to one of the legends of the sport, in my opinion. Talk about, what he meant to you guys and the friendship you guys had, even back to
I think
when
that's what his
you
pro
and
mod's called.
yeah, that was what his pro mod was called as well. Talk about, even back going to the Penda days, racing with him in Naples and all these other places. Talk about Wayne a little bit.
Well, Wayne was not just a friend; he was a brother to me. I've known Wayne almost 40 years. We started, not too long after I started, Wayne did, and we just hit it off, and we became best friends. And eventually, basically, I would call him a brother versus a friend. And we've done everything together throughout, his career and in my career. And then, you know, we stayed in touch for many years after he had sold his truck. And he was a big drag racing fan also. And a lot of people probably have seen him on No Prep Kings, the drag racing show that Discovery Channel came out with. And I was behind the scenes actually tuning that car and helping him, get some success there. And then, as time went by, we decided to build our car, which we now have a pro mod car also. And we were going to do a 2-car assault on the rest of those guys. And unfortunately, he caught COVID and, and passed away, from COVID. And, we never got to fulfill, that dream of both of us, with a 2-car assault on the rest of those guys. But, uh, his son now is carrying on that legacy with their car. He just went out this past Saturday. We made some test hits with the car and getting acclimated with it so he can get that car out and run. We just finished our car and we got to get it out and do some testing now. And hopefully this fall, when things slow down a little bit for us, I mean, we're very blessed. We're very busy till the third week of November, and not a lot of time to do anything else other than fix stuff and keep going. But that's another avenue that we're going to pursue as well as play with the pro mod car.
You guys are full tilt bookie right now with the scheduling and stuff like that. But I mean, having a father and son team going around and basically having your schedule full all the way to November, that has to be humbling for you guys. Knowing that there's people calling you guys left and right.
Absolutely. I feel very blessed in our industry, to have that much work. This past January, I started 42 years that I've been doing this, and and to be able to do 150 to 200 shows a year, that's just phenomenal. And it's very, very humbling, and I appreciate every day of it.
Now I got to go back to the pro mod thing because I'm a huge drag racing nerd. NHRA was one of my first loves. What setup do you guys have in your pro mod, like body, engine? What kind of setup do you guys have for that?
It's a 71 CUDA. It's a
Nice.
double rail G-force chassis, all billet brad Anderson Hemi. We stayed with the Roots supercharger versus a screw charger because we want to get penalized for carrying the extra weight. And believe it or not, we this past weekend I was down to the NTPA tractor pools, and a good friend of mine that I hadn't seen in probably 30 years, Mr. Ned Walliser, which that should bring a name back to you guys that you haven't heard in a long time. They were the head of Pace SFX for the Monsters for the longest time. And he now is in charge of NHRA. And I was telling him that we built this brand new Pro Mod car. And he says, wow, that we would love to have you come run with us. And I said, man, that's what we're looking to do, along with the No Prep Kings and some other stuff. And so we sat down and talked for quite a while. And we get some laps on this car and get it figured out. We're definitely going to go run some NHRA, stuff with it as well.
Anything about maybe running the car at the U.S. Nationals? I know they have tons of bracket racing. That the U.S. Nationals is huge, but are you guys considering taking her over to U.S. Nationals?
Absolutely. Probably won't make it this year because we're so busy with the trucks, but definitely next year, a lot more of that's going to be on the radar.
And what a body choice. A 71 CUDA. I don't think there's a lot of those out there that are running in NHRA Pro Mod or IHRA because they've just come back as well.
Yeah, I've seen that, and that's pretty good. A good friend of mine, Scott Palmer, he just won the inaugural event there for IHRA, and that's pretty awesome. And he told me that anytime that he's anywhere close to us and we need help, he will come help us with the car. So that's pretty good company to have. A top fuel guy come and help you on your Pro Mod.
Scott Palmer's a badass, is what he is.
There is no doubt in my mind.
And also with that too, you're take laps and stuff like that, and the tuning. I know that watching some of the guys, they even with the cars that have like old Camaros and like IROCs, they still run the Hemi. Were you ever wanting to experiment with the Pro Chargers or anything with turbo, or obviously the superchargers one way to do it too, but would you ever like maybe you wanted to experiment with a Pro Charger?
Well, each one kind of has a little bit of advantage and a disadvantage, and I try to, I guess, think outside the box and try to go the route of least troubles, I guess, so to say. A lot of the guys with the Pro Chargers are replacing two or three of them in a weekend just because issues with them, and it just seems like the blowers are just so tried and true, and they make severe horsepower. So I'll just stay with something that works.
Now, one thing I wanted to bring up, which is really cool. A couple years ago, I got to meet Stacy David. Now,
Yep.
if people don't know who Stacy David is, you need to get educated. That dude was
That's funny.
That dude was all over my childhood. Him, Dennis Gage, who I've gotten to meet. But when I met Stacy and I mentioned that I do stuff with monster trucks, he immediately brought your name up.
Yep.
And he had nothing but awesome things to say about you guys. Talk about the relationship you have with Stacy and just like all about that.
I don't know how many years ago that I met Stacy, and we just clicked and hit it off right off the get go. And he's been a super super good friend of mine for a long long time. And one of the projects that came up that he was doing was a Sergeant Rock, the Willie's, or not Willie's, but the Sergeant Rock truck that he built, or actually I built for him. Um, Came out to be pretty cool, and that's been a very good deal. Um, and we talk all the time. It's probably not a couple 3 weeks goes by that we don't talk.
And also, probably people maybe want to know is the story behind you rebuilding your Predator leaf spring truck. Because you kind of with you debuting that started the craze, and now people are finding old school monster trucks all around, trying to rebuild them, and try to make them, the nostalgia side of it. So you were one of the first ones. You built it before even the International Monster Truck Hall of Fame and Museum was created. I think when
Yes,
2011, 2012, and I think you debuted that truck late '09, early
2010. Yeah,
2010.
yeah.
So what was the story behind that?
Well, 2009, I guess, driving up and down the road, on the interstate, as well as I do, your brain wanders in a million different directions. And I was tired of people coming up and kind of ignorant, I guess, and so to say, that they had no idea where our industry began. And, I started thinking, it's like, you know what? If I restore that truck and bring it to shows and put it next to one of the current race trucks and show people, hey, this is where this sport began. This is what we used to do with these trucks to where it is now. And that was one of the major things, I want to do it as an educational tool to show people this is where our industry began. And now the current trucks is where the industry is now. And then also, the minis, you think about it, that's our future, because it creates young drivers and moves them into, a program later in life. So I kind of want to do the trifecta, you know what I'm saying?
And Brandon, have you had a chance to get behind the wheel of the old leaf spring truck, and what do you think of driving that? Just putting it around compared to being in a race truck.
Yeah, a while back we actually built a pod for the back of it that actually had seats in it because we had so much business with the ride trucks, one just couldn't keep up. So we basically turned that into a second ride truck, and I got to drive it a couple times, and it's definitely something to look on. That wow, this is actually where we came and where we are now.
And you kind of have the two different types of ride trucks because a lot of a lot of ride trucks you see in the industry is what like your old leafer Predator truck is like, the leaf springs and the shocks and stuff like that. But you also was one of the first ones to also make a ride truck, but kind of have what today's modern truck suspension and chassis and stuff like that would come about. So tell us a little bit about the modern kind of ride truck deal.
Yeah, 2003 is when I built the ride truck that we have this tube chassis and 4 link and all that. And at that time, we had 2 leaf spring trucks before that, and I decided, you know what, it's time for people to get an actual feeling what it's like to ride, a truck that moves just like the race trucks. When you take off in the ladder, the back end sinks down. When you get on the brakes, it raises up, the front goes down. Kind of give them a ride of what it's like that we go through, Cheech, just like you and I go through, with the race trucks, get all that
Mhm.
movement. And it's the first one of its kind. When I built that, nobody else had a tube ride truck at that time. And again, that's one of the things that, I look at doing is being different than everybody else.
And that's one thing that I appreciate about what you guys do is you're always looking outside the box. And I've always wondered where the sport's heading, and you guys are doing that with your current truck. But one thing I want to mention about you when you came out with the restoration of your OG truck is you went out crushing cars. Like, you put that thing through its paces. It wasn't just a showpiece. You were like, you know what, I'm going to show people what we used to do with these things.
Yeah, believe it or not, when we finished that in 2009, well, actually 2010 would have been the reopening of the Pontiac Silverdome. We took it up there for the first, for that event. Uh, we worked all night long and drove straight from here in Tennessee to there. We loaded in a trailer. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning and headed to Pontiac, which is a 10-hour ride. We were late getting there. We didn't get there till about noon. Never had the tires bolted on it yet until we got there. And that was the first time since it got put back together that we was able to get it out and drive it around. And we went out and did the 2 car crushes with it right off the get-go.
And I think in the TMB TV footage, Colby Marshall was riding shotgun with you.
Yeah, absolutely was.
How is that, having him ride with you for that?
That was pretty cool. That was an experience that I can guarantee he won't never forget.
And the cool thing is later on like if you put 8 tires on the truck, went in the water and did all that, with that too, we're gonna go back, clear back, and your first truck was Lone Eagle, and how did that come about back then? And I'm assuming because later on in the future you did come out with the Predator truck, and so because I remember the Hamburg 1987 I think race, you did very well there, and what set off you to build your first monster truck, Lone Eagle?
Well, I was that little kid that was sitting in the stands in the Pontiac Silverdome when Bigfoot did the very first car crush ever, in public. And from that day forward, I was hooked and said, man, I want to do that. And so I decided from that point forward, that was to build my first truck. And then as time went by, that actually did happen. And then the transition, from the Lone Eagle to the Predator is when in 1988, Chevrolet decided to change the body style, go from the square body to the OBS body. And that's when I made the transition to the Predator name once I put the new 88 body on.
And it's cool to see the evolution of Predator and your career, and and now that your son's with you, how special is it to have Brandon with you doing this now?
I couldn't be more proud of him, and to carry on something that I started with my dad, and and now I can pass it to him, and maybe on farther. We don't know, how whatever life brings, but it's pretty absolutely awesome, And unfortunately, back in November, I lost my dad, and that's a hole that will never be replaced. But I'm hoping that we can carry on as long as we have, and I've been at it with 42 years, with family, and it doesn't get any better to be able to do it with your family.
And outside of the monster truck stuff, you make parts also for all these trucks. I remember, I think 2 weeks ago, you dropped off some rims for the Kaisers with the what you make, and you do so much behind the scenes, Alan. That I mean, it's freaking awesome. You remind me of the White Rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. Always moving, 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 moving. I was so lucky to have the interview with you. Thanks, Brandon. And have Brandon also. But you guys work as a team behind the scenes too. Not just the monster trucks, but you're making parts and stuff like that for the industry to keep on going.
Absolutely, and I've been doing that for my whole career. I've built numerous trucks for different customers. We built full size trucks, we built mini trucks, we built from the simplest parts to whatever somebody might need. I'm not afraid to get in there and start building parts. I'm not one to sit down. If I sit down, I fall asleep. So I got to keep motivated and keep going. Otherwise, it doesn't get anything. No production gets done. So uh, I enjoy the building part just as much as I do going out and running. It's I guess that's the craftsman in me. I enjoy working with my hands and taking a piece of tubing and make something that you can actually go out and do something with. That's just pretty gratifying to me.
One thing, and this will be one of my last questions. One of the things I'd love to see you guys do, and this is just the old school fan in me, is you have your new chassis painted orange. I'd love to see an OG Monster Wars Predator come back at least once. The OG scheme with the orange writing, that would be so cool. I love like the whole era of monster trucks. It'd be so cool to see.
Well, don't wait too long because it may happen sooner than you think.
Yes.
Ooh, that's
You're about to
cool.
make you're about to make all the old school 90s kids happy again.
Well, we've got a bunch of new stuff going to happen here probably in the next 3 months or so. I can't say a whole lot yet, but there's a whole bunch of new stuff on the horizon in our camp.
And I'm gonna also pick your brain here, Alan, because I was watching some old footage around '95, and you had a issue, I think, with your spindle at the Penda racing. It just seemed like the right rear always buckled, and I don't know if it was a spindle. I think it was a spindle,
No,
but
actually,
if it wasn't.
thinking back, that was a different set of axles that we were going to try. That was the Clark Hearth axles that was underneath that truck, and it kept breaking knuckles off. And the knuckles are made out of such poor grade cast that it kept breaking the knuckle around the kingpin plates. So as time went by, we transitioned them out and went back to the standard Clark axles.
Okay. I was about to ask you what, since you were always a person that likes to engineer and tinker with stuff, what my question was, what did you do to fix that problem? Well,
Yep,
you tried a different axle instead of the you wanted to be lighter,
that's
right? And
correct.
then
That is correct. Yes.
okay.
Now we've
Uh,
got something we're working on, but I can't, like I said, I can't say yet until it's finally finished and out going. But look more, towards some of that stuff coming.
Now this might be an inside joke, but I'll ask it. Sean, our buddy Sean Green, Alan, what's your favorite pre-show meal? Logan's or a random local restaurant in Texas?
Anything that's good. Usually a steakhouse is a number one choice.
So you like the Texas Roadhouse rolls?
Yep.
Dude. That's one thing that I'm mad about. I didn't go to my trip in the States is the Texas Roadhouse. I'm so mad.
Well, come on down. We'll take you to one.
Yeah,
Hey,
it's so good.
I'm hoping to be down to the East Coast at least sometime in the next year or two. So,
Right.
So
Well,
my
either that
last
or
question.
we'll get up to you at one of these points.
oh hell yeah.
So the question that I actually really brain farted was for Brandon. You've been posting a lot lately, um, with like a lot of the car crushing, a lot of the lot of activity with you guys racing and stuff like that. What got you to publish a lot more of the the car crushes and stuff like that on the team page?
Yeah, I really just want to bring the name back to where everybody, that's the first thing they think of is when they think of monster trucks is Predator. So I want, everything's going geared more towards social media nowadays. So I figured, why not start publishing stuff and getting our name back out there and hopefully bringing our name to be the first on everybody's mind when they think of monster trucks.
That's cool. I like that. The one, just the little bit. I don't know where you guys were at, but Alan, I think you were doing the car crush because Brandon, you were filming. But that was it makes me feel good because I do a lot of car crushes. Our team does too, and I think it's something that I don't think people expect that
Well, it's
not
something
used
that
to.
it's something that needs to be brought back. When the industry started, what did we do? We crushed cars. As time went by, cars kind of got pushed to the wayside. We don't have cars anymore. At some point, you kind of got to bring it full circle and bring the cars back in and actually, do what these trucks were designed to do.
I love car crushes. One of my favorite moments ever was working with he drove for Bigfoot and Hall Brothers. I'm trying to remember his name right now.
Kyle Doyle
Not
or Mike
Kyle.
Miller.
Mike Miller. I got to work with him at a car crush here, and he was the only person there I was the only person that he trusted to run their RII, and it was my first time ever doing that. And that's why I love it, because you don't get those moments at a show. You get to help him. You get to help people tire down and be more personable. At a show, it's always go 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 go. at a car crush, it's more chill, and I that's why I love to go to car crushers whenever there's one close to me.
Absolutely, and I love to do them too. And like you just said, it's more personable. You can spend time with fans, and show people what these trucks are capable of. And and people want to see carnage, and they want to see cars crushed. And we need to get back to some of that.
Man. Well, guys, when is the next show for you guys in the next couple weeks? And where can people follow you at?
We're going to be in Owensville, Ohio this Friday. Saturday, we're going to be in Hartford, Michigan. Then the following weekend, we're going to be in Chickasha, Oklahoma, and Huntington, Tennessee. And I don't remember after that. That's as far out as my little pea brain will think right now.
That's farther than most people. Yeah, but that's cool. And follow you guys on Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And how many of these shows are you against Colton? And are you going to whoop it? Or are you going to whoop up on him?
I'm not sure where we'll run with him next. Possibly Owensville. I'm not sure if they're there or they're somewhere else. It's hard to say. I just take one day at a time, one show at a time, and whoever comes, we just kick their butt.
Nice. I love that.
It's always a good time. It's always a fun time racing with you guys. And you guys, Alan, you're probably like second show that I ever did anyway. And you helped me out, I think, in Springdale about learning about the tire pressures and stuff like that. And still,
I think back on Springdale or somewhere in Missouri. I think you still owe me a truck wash.
Yeah, I do. But every single time you come, it rains. So, I mean,
yeah, because somebody did donuts down by my rig and splattered the whole side of my rig, with big old mud clods.
Well, the next time,
my fault.
The next time you guys do a show together, Jesus got to bring out the wife beard and the Daisy Dukes to watch that track.
There you go. I'd go for that.
No, I'll pay the ticket for Brad in old Canada over there with his Logan Steakhouse.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah. But yeah, I always. But hey, every single time I see Alan, I go, I need to get you your blue beacon. Give him the beacon wash, and then
I think that was somewhere in Missouri, I believe.
It was in the middle of nowhere, Missouri.
Yeah, absolutely was.
It was It was, I think, the closest big city that we were going to be near was Hannibal.
It might be like 100 miles out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and then it was a grass field, and it looked like an old high school football stadium that they turned into a fairground. It was like a local fairground, and I think it was me, Alan, and I think one of the Basil brothers. It was, I
think so. Yeah,
or something like that. And you had Pouncer with you instead of Predator in the red chassis.
Yeah.
You still have that chassis, right?
No, I sold that back almost 2 years ago.
Okay, I know the Skull Crusher had your old Prowler truck,
right?
And then what happened to that red one?
A gentleman in Michigan bought it.
Okay, but it just poured. I think there was only one dry time, and that was during wheelies. But then the rest of it was a huge shower. And,
it was nothing but a sloppy mess.
Yeah, I think we were there for a good. I know we were there until like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, but we still headed out and trucked out. But we were taking these, it was so bad that we had those wrap cards. They look like little credit cards, but people use it for like the wrap jobs and scraping that. We were scraping the tires off the Firestones and stuff like that. And
they were like a big giant donut.
Mm-hmm. Giant slick, but man, thank you guys for being on. Alan, I know I did an interview with you a few years back at the Hall of Fame, but still having catch up with you guys. It was awesome seeing you at Bloomsburg, and hopefully see you more around next year or later on this year.
Absolutely, we appreciate it, and it was good running with you in Bloomsburg. You did a great job there, and I'm going to do a bunch more with you.
Right on. How was it also chatting up with Tim and Mark?
That was pretty good. I hadn't seen Mark and Tim in a couple of years, and it was good to catch up. it's like, good friendships, you don't even have to worry about, when the last time you seen them, because you just pick up right where you left off.
And we were talking about saying how cool it would have been, how cool it would be having you, just having you, the Hall brothers, Dan Patrick, Bigfoot. Even though they're the historical trucks, like this truck behind me, Virginia Giant, that was awesome to see. Colton's truck was actually old Hoffman truck.
Yep.
Still, and then the War Wizard, it still was Randy Moore's, but still having all that come together, got to be pretty sweet.
Well, that's just history, and it's pretty awesome to put all that together. And you think about, between all those trucks, how many years of experience there is between all those trucks that was in Bloomsburg. It's probably over 200 to 250 years if you added them all together.
Right on. And then, just having you and the Hall brothers there. I hear stories from Mark and Tim. I mean, this is before they had the Dodge deal. I mean, Executioner, they said we didn't have the power as what Bigfoot had or what Paul Schaefer had or Fred. The best thing we had to do was suspension and learn how to tune the suspension good enough where we can get on the ground and hammer through and do what we need to do. And just hearing just the smaller details can make you win a second ahead or second back, for all that stuff. And I'm thinking that you were kind of in the same boat also there, Alan.
Absolutely. And, that's what drives you to do more, because, you got to try, I guess, play catch up, and you got to figure out ways to, overcome, a deficit here or there. And that's what makes you an innovation. That's what makes innovations to move this the industry forward. And back in those days, the Pendant, the Pro MT, that was probably one of the biggest turning factors in our industry of moving trucks forward. Because you had to have technology in order to compete and be that number one guy.
I didn't know if you had anything else there, Cheech.
Well, that was your turn. I did like the last three.
No, but again, thank you guys for coming on. It was good chatting with you guys again. Since I was at that event right there in the Jambo in Indy. Cheech, who do we have on for next week, my friend?
I'm gonna screw up his name, but I think it's Habo.
Oh,
Habo, yeah,
Yeah.
from the Monster Blog, Toughest Monster Truck Tour, really popular BMX guy. Gonna pick his brain a little bit as announcing and his videography, just being, and also in RC because he's a huge monster truck fan from the St. Louis area that goes all over the world. So we're gonna have him on next week.
I can't wait to
And
nerd out, talk a little bit.
The week after, a Kurt Kramer alert. Kurt Kramer alert. So we're gonna have Mr. Kramer on after that.
That's I can't wait. I can't wait to talk to Habo. I'm a huge BMX nerd. I love, I grew up on Dave Mira and Ryan Nyquist, K Rob. So it'd be cool to chat that up a little bit with him there.
Right on. Yeah, it'd be a good time.
But anything else, Cheech?
No, pretty much just going over. And once again, Alan, thank you for everything that's been going on, and thank you for keep on going, Brandon. It's awesome seeing you also, and it was awesome watching you at Owensboro and everything like that. Once again, follow you guys on your Predator Racing Facebook page, and man, it was cool talking.
Absolutely, man. We enjoyed it, and look forward to it again.
Will do.
Again, guys, thank you so much. And don't remember, guys, check with your friends and family. Mental health is a very important thing. If you're struggling, going through anything, please, there are hotlines that you can call. You don't need to go through things alone. And as Cheech always says, donate blood. Find your local blood bank or American Red Cross to donate. Get your pets spayed or neutered. Don't leave them in hot vehicles.
Yeah. Hot. Even though it's not in the wintertime, it's summer and it's hot. Even though Canada, it's hot. So animals need to come in. Like I said, it just need to be loved. So
if you don't get them out of there, a big 2,000 horsepower kitty cat's going to come and deal with you.
There you go. That sounds pretty awesome.
All right, guys. Until next week when we have Habbo on, keep the rubber side down and the shiny side up, everybody. Peace.